Recording in progress. All right.
Oh, well.
We good, Tammy?
Here comes Julie.
Oh, she'll come in. All right. Good evening. Welcome to the November 14th, 2022 regularly scheduled work session. Tonight, there are two items on the agenda. Public comment is allowed that is germane to an agenda item. If you wish to speak, you are required to fill out a public comment card. And if you are speaking on behalf of an organization, you must fill out an affidavit that you have the authority of said organization. Please remember, this is not a time to engage the mayor or members of the city council in conversation. When your name is called, please come forward and speak into the microphone, stating your name and address for the record. Public comment will be allowed for a total of 10 minutes per agenda item and no more than 2 minutes per person. Once the item is called, no other public cards will be accepted. All right, will the city clerk please sound agenda item A?
Mayor, our first item is the presentation of the 2022 tree canopy study. I would like to call Ms. Sandra DeWitt to the podium.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to present the 2022 tree canopy study. Before we do that, I kind of wanted to draw everybody's attention to, thank you, Emily. You recently heard about an award that the city of Milton got for Plant Milton, Outstanding New Initiative. This came from the Georgia Tree Council. So I wanted to bring it here tonight so you could see it, because you really kind of have to see it in person. It's a very nice drawing of a September elm that is one of the state champion trees located in Rome, Georgia. So I just wanted to bring that tonight to share with you guys. Now we'll get to the presentation. So why are we doing a tree canopy study in 2022? Is because the tree ordinance tells us to. So, if you remember, in our intent and purpose of the tree ordinance, it states to maintain no net loss of tree canopy below the 57% existing as of March 2017. The city will measure the tree canopy in the fall of 2022 and not to exceed a 5-year period between measurements thereafter, using the latest technology and use the results to evaluate the effectiveness of the ordinance in achieving the city's tree canopy goals. So that is why we are here tonight, to present to you the tree canopy study that we did this fall. And how did we do the study? Well, we looked at a couple of options, and we actually looked at maybe outsourcing this and having somebody do it outside of Milton using a consultant. But luckily, we have Planner 2, Emily Schnari, who is also our GIS liaison in ComDev. So she was able to step up and help us bring this in-house, and we actually saved some money doing that. So we chose to use the iTree Canopy software, which is the same software that was used in the 2017 tree canopy study, as well as a previous tree canopy study done in 2012. So this is a tool for classifying land and tree coverage across a given area using aerial imagery. And how it works, I'll just give you the basics, is we download our shapefile, which in this case is the city limits of Milton. And then it gives us random sample points to identify. The recommended sample points is 500 to 1,000. We did 3,000 sample points so we could get a very accurate number. And that was also the number of sample points that was used in the previous studies, 2017 and 2012. So we wanted to have a real apples to apples comparison when we did our tree canopy study in 2022. And this is an example of the sample points that you get using the iTree Canopy software. So all the green dots you see over the City of Milton map are the sample points that were randomly selected by the software. And then it pulls up a very close-up of that imagery, and you identify it as tree canopy, bare earth, impervious surface, water, or whatever other categories we have selected. So this is kind of an example, and you'll see all the green dots are tree canopy. So we have a lot of tree canopy over the City of Milton. And then we'll just get right to it and give you the results. So for our 2022 canopy coverage study, our canopy coverage for the City of Milton is 57.77%. And just to kind of remind you, there is a breakdown over there of the land coverage. If you see the chart with the different categories that we talked about, like impervious surface and water and all that. So it kind of breaks it down and then it gives you this calculation. Just as a reminder, our 2017 canopy coverage study resulted in 57.27%. And here is the breakdown of that one as well. And then our 2012 canopy coverage results was 57.35%. So in summary, we see that there is no significant change in canopy coverage since 2012. Some of the explanations for this are that our existing tree canopy has grown. So as trees mature and grow, so does their canopy, therefore increasing our canopy coverage. We also have replacement trees that are required per our tree ordinance. So as we are losing trees, we are making sure that they are replaced. We also have acquired some green space since 2012. I'm sure everybody's familiar with all the green space we have at the City of Milton, which has slowed down development on those properties. So those properties have remained intact and have had no tree removal out there, as well as significant change in places like Milton City Park and Preserve, where we took areas that were once a golf course and we are letting them go back to nature. And therefore, they are growing trees out there and we are getting an increase in our tree canopy there. So recommendations, after looking at this information, we have determined that there are no amendments necessary to the tree ordinance because it appears that we are maintaining our tree canopy just like the purpose and intent of the ordinance stated. And that our next tree canopy study should be done in 5 years in 2027. So with all that information being said, I would like to throw it back to Mayor and Council and see if anybody else has any recommendations or comments on our tree canopy study.
Any questions from council?
I have a general question. Senator, these days when we have development, how often are people, rather than doing recompense with planting on site, how often does it happen that the developers are putting the recompense requirements into the tree bank?
Tree fund?
Mhm.
That very rarely happens.
Good.
Most people like doing the replacement.
Mhm.
So they want to do the replacement and most people do the replacement. I very rarely have anybody do alternative compliance on development. Every once in a while, I may have a homeowner choose to do that when they're taking down trees on their property, just because they don't want to plant back as many trees as they're taken down sometimes.
Right.
So it doesn't happen very often in development and it rarely happens with single family existing homes.
Good. But it still exists and it still works. If that happens, it's there for.
It's there if somebody wants to use it.
Yep.
And we also have the, not the tree canopy fund, but the planting on other property and tree bank option. But to this day, I've had nobody request to register as a tree bank. And I've had nobody use that alternative compliance.
Okay. Well, that's a good place to be, right?
Right.
We'd rather they take advantage, or not take advantage, but meet the
Plant the
requirements
trees, right.
of the development.
Yep.
Terrific. Nice job.
Rick?
Thank you.
Sandra, are you seeing pretty good cooperation with the tree companies and actually making sure that we've got permits like on homeowners' properties before they cut down trees?
I get a lot of tree removal permit requests in. A lot of them do come from tree companies. I'd probably say I get about half and half. Half come from tree companies, half come from the homeowners themselves. And sometimes when the homeowners call me and ask about a tree removal permit, they say either the tree company told them to get it or their HOA told them to get it. So everybody seems to be pretty knowledgeable about it now. It seems like word is getting out. So a lot of people are getting permits.
Good. Thanks.
Mhm.
Carol?
How much of the replacement or what percentage are actually going back to oaks that bear the good acorns for the environment? like white oaks and red oaks and things like that?
Well, I don't have a breakdown of the species that are going back per se. I'd have to look into that more.
Because developers don't normally do those. They,
Well, now when they're doing recompense for specimen trees, they usually do tend to go back with your shade trees such as oaks and hickories and things like that because
There's
they're
not a
going to
lot
get
of
more
that.
credit for them.
yeah.
So they want to put back the larger. And when we have people do street trees that are required, I require it to be a shade tree. So a lot of times they do go in with oaks. I can't say they're always 100% of the time going in with oaks, but that's usually the preferred choice for street trees and specimen tree recompense. But I mean, if you wanted a breakdown of the numbers, I'd have to go back and look and see what percentage of it is actually oaks versus other species.
Yeah, but it's mostly maples and things like that, right?
I wouldn't say mostly maples. People have kind of started shying away from maples a little bit now because of the surface root problems with some of the red maples and heat island effect on red maples. If I do see red maples going in, it's usually in neighborhoods and parking lots sometimes. But people have started using black tupelo instead of the red maples. And then, like I said, along street trees requirements, I usually see people going in with large shade trees such as oaks or things like that.
Anything else? Paul?
Sandra, one of the things that was the charge from the tree canopy study or the ordinance that came out of the work that was done was a statement that we would look back and see if there were any regular issues or complaints that would generate a need for us to go back and measure anything. And I think that the result of the tree canopy ordinance is just what we had hoped for. Is there anything that's popping up as a concern for the community, for the citizens in the administration of the policies?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head, maybe. The only thing I could see is that sometimes I do get a little pushback on the application fees.
Yeah.
Which is the $25 per tree with a maximum of $150. I don't get a lot of pushback on that, but that would probably be one of the things that I do get a little pushback on. That would probably be the main thing
That's
that I
good.
could think
And
of.
if we don't have any, that's great.
Yeah.
If that's the only one we've got, that's not a bad thing.
Mhm.
Great, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm glad we were able to bring it in-house and not outsourcing that. So good stuff.
Yes, that worked
Thanks.
out very well.
And congratulations on the award.
Thank you.
Okay. If Tammy will call the next item, please.
Mayor, that next item is discussion of implementation of flag lot restrictions. Mr. Michael Cardeman.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here to present a land use item outlined in the 2040 Comprehensive Plan Short-Term Work Program. Perform due diligence to implement restrictions on flag lots. Tonight is just the introduction. If staff gets the feedback to move forward, this will come back before you again as a text amendment. That will also include a CZIM for public input and also go back before the Planning Commission for a recommendation to Council. The common theme from the CPAC meetings was the need to preserve rural Milton. CPAC did not propose any changes to the future land use map. AG1 lot width requirement to be increased to 150 feet and to implement restrictions on flag lots were the two objectives of achieving this goal. Explore implementing restrictions on flag lots in the city of Milton. The definition of a flag lot means a lot where frontage to a public street is provided via a narrow strip of land forming a pole or stem to the buildable portion of the lot. Some additional information on neighboring cities, Roswell, Alpharetta, and Sandy Springs all currently prohibit flag lots. Staff is proposing flag lots shall be prohibited in the city of Milton. However, after industry feedback, staff is proposing a 5-acre exception. Our thinking was, what if a property owner wanted to carve out a single flag lot for a family member? Staff felt 5 acres was the appropriate size that would create enough separation from other parcels that the integrity of Milton's rural theme will still be intact, and specifically along the rural viewshed. Staff really analyzed everything when we came up with our proposal, and we really determined the only way to preserve large lots in rural Milton was to prohibit flag lots in the city with only the 5-acre exception. Now, let's break down the requirements of a flag lot from the current zoning ordinance. Lot frontage is defined at the street, which requires 35 feet, and the flag stem is allowed to be reduced to 15 feet. The buildable area, which includes the minimum 150 feet lot width requirement, begins after the flag stem. I'm going to go into detail about some flag lot concerns. These are existing flag lot examples in the city of Milton. When you have multiple flag lots clustered together, it creates a concerning development pattern. It also creates unique setback issues. In this example, a lot's rear is bordering a side is bordering a rear, and a rear is bordering a front. It creates a hodgepodge of setbacks that lacks uniformity. This also creates odd lot placement where the lots are typically stacked behind each other. Number 2, the lots in the rear are pulled away from the street and lack a strong relationship to the street and overall neighborhood character. If a house is on a flag lot that is located hundreds of feet from the street, it's going to be less inviting to the overall neighborhood character than a traditional lot with a house located closer to the street. Number 3, the stem of the flag lot is allowed to count toward the minimum lot size requirement, lowering the overall buildable area. Number 4, flag lots typically use a shared access easement. This lowers the privacy for all 3 homeowners when it comes to ingress and egress. And keep in mind, the common driveway is typically located in the flag stem right against the property line, so that affects the non-flag lot neighbors to the east or west when they board the flag lot for ingress and egress. And finally, increased travel time for emergency vehicles if you have a long driveway and a more secluded flag lot. Before diving more into the flag lots, I wanted to give an example of a traditional 3-lot minor plat. As you can see, the lots are rectangular in shape, and the house footprints are built side setback to side setback, with extra room in the rear and the front setback. Now, here's an example of a minor plat with flag lots. Flag lots are usually only 3 lots, as 3 lots or less qualifies as a minor plat. When you get to that 4th lot, the subdivision regulations kick in. And as I pointed out earlier, the house footprints of traditional lots shown in the previous slide are built side setback to side setback. The house footprints of flag lots, inversely, are built front setback to rear setback. When you see the distance of the front setback at 50 feet and the 60 feet are greater than the 25-foot side setbacks, this creates a tighter house footprint than traditional lots. In fact, the middle lot had to seek a variance to the front and rear setback to make the house footprint fit. Here's the aerial of the existing minor plat, and this is platted in 2016. Here's an existing flag lot in the city that is exactly 1 acre in size. In this example, the flag stem is 400 feet in length and accounts for 15% of the entire lot area. This essentially reduces the overall buildable area by 15% versus a traditional lot. So in this exact example, you're getting 85 cents on the dollar when it comes to lot area. As I stated earlier, the CPAC didn't want to propose any changes to the future land use map. Take your attention to the yellow areas which are zoned low-density residential and are established neighborhoods. Staff thought this is a great example as it shows the natural flow and development patterns of different pockets of neighborhoods spaced out in the city. The opposite of Milton would be an urban center that grows in an outward-like pattern with multiple rings that would cluster neighborhoods together closer to available sewer. Land is scarce in Milton, and what we are proposing is really, we want to limit the spaces between those established neighborhoods to not really give the appearance of infill developments and spot zoning, because that's going to directly impact the rural viewshed in a negative way. Here's a map that staff created showing every flag lot in the city of Milton, with an overall total of 408 flag lots. As you can see, there are a high number of flag lots, and many of them are already existing between the established neighborhoods in the city. Staff took the liberty of researching flag lots by character area, and the two character areas with the most flag lots are Central Milton and Birmingham character areas. Here is a more detailed map showing the 290 flag lots in the Central Milton character area. And here's the map showing 86 flag lots in the Birmingham character area. Planning Commission met on October 26 and supported prohibiting flag lots in the city of Milton. However, Planning Commission did not support the 5-acre exception. Here's a summary of the project plan to date. Initiation and data gathering was completed in April. Project planning from May to October, which included receiving feedback from Planning Commission on October 26, and we are currently in the execution phase. We are looking to receive feedback from Mayor and Council tonight. And lastly, December through March would be the adoption cycle. In the final two slides, staff thought it would be a great idea to circle back to the flag lot minor plat you saw earlier in the presentation. Before this was platted in 2016, it was one large 3-acre parcel. Large lots, the hobby farms, that is what we are trying to preserve in the city of Milton. Staff wanted to find a 3-acre parcel that's currently a horse farm / hobby farm in the city of Milton. In this exact example, half of the property is dedicated to barn and pasture, while the other half is dedicated to single-family home. Now, while this property currently has a large amount of street frontage, imagine an inverted 90 degrees and only had a minimal amount of street frontage. Staff's goal is to preserve this exact example, to preserve this 3-acre horse farm, rather than it being converted into 3 1-acre parcels from flag lots. In summary, staff is proposing flag lots shall be prohibited in the city of Milton, excluding the 5-acre exception. Any input or questions for staff?
I do.
All right, Carol?
So thank you, Michael. Could you go back to your first slide? The introductory slide? Cover page.
Excuse me.
So as a work session, and with this coming to our attention in the CZIM process, it's very prejudicial to phrase it like this. Perform due diligence to implement restriction on flag lots, because I'm not yet sold that there is a problem. And then you also said that you all had reviewed everything and that 5 acres is should be the only exception. And I'm sitting there thinking, why am I here? So we haven't heard from homeowners or people who have the property, and they have rights. And until we hear from them, because I don't know that anybody in the Planning Commission, or there might be an exception of one, that is invested in property and paid those taxes all these years, and may have a property that a large part of, maybe a 20-acre parcel, 5 acres will go to a farm, 8 acres will do something else, but there's some quirk in it where a flag lot would be fine. There's a couple down the street from me on Providence that I don't think that they're necessarily bad, because they share a driveway to go deep into the woods. Are you familiar with those?
I am not.
Okay. So, when you show an egregious example there, especially an aerial view, which is very depressing, I think we need to see the balance where it is working, because I am coming in here open-minded, but this isn't necessarily an open-minded platform. And so I think we need to hear the other side of it before we jump to conclusions, if that maybe are those perhaps fair comments.
If you, is this the wording that comes from the short-term work program that's in the comp plan?
Correct, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that,
So it's not yours.
No,
but
No,
there.
it's the exact
Okay,
word
you're not
verbiage.
indicted for anything. I'm just saying, it's
Right.
just, this is very prejudicial in its presentation.
Oh, I hear you. And yeah,
Yeah.
this is definitely the introduction. And
Okay.
I want to make you guys understand
Yeah.
that this is just, the first, start of the process. And when we came up with the 5-acre exception, that was industry feedback from different surveying companies in the city. So we definitely heard from the masses that came to us when they knew this was going through the comprehensive plan.
Okay. Well, this is more color detail than that this is theirs, but we have a process to go through.
Oh, absolutely.
So we don't know. It's perhaps implement restrictions, because I think we're probably going to start hearing from, and the people who have the property are going to be in the minority, but they're the ones with the property rights. So we just have to be very sensitive to that.
Michael, one quick question. I saw you looked at Roswell and Alpharetta, but I think looking at Cherokee County might be another good example, as their zoning probably more closer aligned with us, maybe. So is that something to maybe take away in just the next step, maybe?
Yeah, I can
Forward?
actually, I'll have to look into Cherokee County for sure.
Why do we always care what everybody else does?
Well, when it comes to the zoning stuff, I think it's important for Cherokee County. when we're looking at Roswell and Alpharetta, I'm like, well, let's actually
Why
look at
are we
Cherokee
looking-
County.
So sure, Cherokee's the best example. I talked to somebody today and the discussion was all about Cherokee's the Wild West, that they would like to be like Milton because they're so not like Milton, because it's Katie bar the door on zoning in Cherokee and Forsyth. Just be careful what we ask for. I think it's important
I
to
just kind of
look.
want to see from every angle,
Yeah.
that's all.
Yeah.
Right, Rick?
Yeah, I guess that what I'm not seeing here, and you didn't specifically go through it, is where are the larger plats that are still left that could be developed? Because what Carol said, that's kind of where my concern comes in, is who are we really impacting when we do this, and do we have a problem? I would agree. I don't think Alpharetta, Roswell, Sandy Springs are the right comparison, because we've got a totally different character out here. So, and if we look at what Alpharetta's done, they're doing a lot of infill of high density because they have sewer connection. We don't have that in the areas where you could potentially have flag lots. So I just want to make sure we're looking. It's easy to say we don't want this will be better, but I think we need to look at who we're impacting as part of this process too. Like Carol said, most people living in Milton population-wise are in subdivision, but we still have people that own large properties or larger properties. Now, you made a comment, once you get above 3 homes, then it goes to subdivision rules. So really all we're talking about is where someone wants to do 3 lots. That's where flag lot today could occur, correct?
Correct, yes.
Really quick to follow up on that. So if you do a major subdivision, you can't do flag lots in a major subdivision?
You could, but the practicality of it
Okay.
really wouldn't make sense to do. Road dedication, detention pond, you technically could.
Because then I was just curious, because I think they did that on Birmingham Highway on the left, the Cherokee border, Blue Valley, I think. Maybe don't quote me on that where I am quoted, but just take a look at that one.
Okay, Blue Valley
Steps.
subdivision?
Yeah, I think they did flag lots.
I'll look into that, yeah.
Michael, can you tell me, so the Planning Commission recommended the 5-acre exception, and yet the staff is suggesting that there should or should not be?
No, the other way around. We recommended the 5-acre exception, and Planning Commission at their meeting said it would be going backwards from the goals of the 2040 comprehensive plan.
And so can you enlighten me a little bit more about that? And you also said that some of the industry, meaning I'm assuming the development community, suggested that they did or did not want the 5-acre exception.
So we've talked to a few surveying companies. Well, they reached out to us when they knew
Okay.
that this was going through the process. And their thought was, what about, the homeowner that owns a large parcel who wants to carve it out for a family member?
Right.
So we kind of took that into consideration as, all right, where are we at? And then Bob and I were kind of debating what's the appropriate size that wouldn't create a development pattern if they were stacked next to each other. Because we really don't want flags next to flags, as it creates a development pattern that, in my opinion, gives the appearance of higher density and it negatively impacts the rural view shed.
I have a question.
Yeah, I think in the next round, when you guys come back to us, if you could bring us a few more details from either the survey community or the planning commission commentary to help me get a grip on the pros and cons of that. Also, you mind going back to your presentation for 1 minute? There's one slide I want to make sure I understand one of the statements that you made. It's the slide that showed the percentages that were committed. Yeah, that one.
Mm-hmm.
So in this example, it looks like, so 85% of the lot, of the one that's highlighted in color, is the buildable area, correct? And the
Yes.
15% is the driveway. And does only that lot get the benefit of the impact of the 15%? Or does lot two, if you're counting 1, 2, 3 from either direction, lot two is in the middle?
So this
This-
example is a minor plat that was platted in 2020. And
Uh-huh.
all 3 lots are 1 acre in size. This one right here, the buildable area is part of the stem. So it's about 200 feet would count towards the non-buildable part. I picked a lot that had the more eye-catching, if you want to call it, but these are all 1 acre in size, but this would have a 200-foot stem, and this one would have no stem, in essence, because it just accesses right here.
So it's not, in this particular drawing, this driveway is not a shared driveway? They actually
It
are.
is, yes. They branch off for all 3 lots. And our point is 15% of the entire buildable area, in essence, isn't buildable because it's for the common driveway.
Yep.
But if you just had a rectangle lot, you wouldn't be crunching the lot by 15%. And that affects how close the setbacks are in the building footprint.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Harold and Rick?
Explain to me, please, because I don't know, last week's decision about wider lots, how does that impact this? Or does it impact this?
So right here, the minimum buildable lot width requirement, give me a sec,
We're
it's
not
screaming
seeing
away.
it.
Okay.
It increased from 100 to 150. So this right here increased from 100 to 150. And the buildable area starts after you get past the stem. And then think of it just cutting off right here, and the rectangle area is the buildable area.
So will that take away some of the opportunity on flag lots anyway?
I don't think so, based off of the layout for flags, because typically what you see is they're built front to rear, and they're usually pretty long. So the flag lots I've seen, the 150 minimum lot width requirement is typically already met.
Okay. What, do you by any chance know what price range these houses are in?
I
Like in a
couldn't speak to
typical
that.
flag lot? You don't know? I don't
Yeah,
know.
I couldn't
Okay.
speak to that, unfortunately. Really?
They were what?
1.5.
Rick, do you got something?
Yeah, I think where it probably would be a concern for homeowners if they've got, now we've got 150 is the minimum lot width, right? For any, except for if you're inside a subdivision and you're in a cul-de-sac. So if you've got a narrower lot that's really deep, you've got property that's back, and now you want to sell it, if, let's say you have 200 feet frontage, now you're limited where you could only have one, you could have 5 acres, it could be deep, but you can't do anything with a back. It's going to be you're going to be selling it as is. That would be, I guess, when we're talking about looking at specific examples, that's where I think would be a concern. If I was a property owner, that limits my ability who I can sell to. It's going to basically say this stays just as it is right now with no opportunity to actually add any development, even though I have 5 acres, but it's deep. That would be one of my concerns, just in looking at, and again, without knowing where these parcels are, we're kind of just making assumptions.
And Michael, just looking at this, it's interesting that STEM counts towards the 1 acre. I'm surprised Fulton County, I'm surprised Fulton County allows that on the septic. So I kind of see where y'all are going on
Yeah, I
that,
don't like that
on
either.
kind of that aspect. So I think, I understand that. And I think that may be something we can take out of this for sure. I mean, to include that as part of the, to not include that as part of the buildable area. So I can see how that can be a problem.
Yeah. That's
If I
kind
heard
of
you-
cheating on the 1
Yeah,
acre thing.
that's
I
kinda-
don't like that.
Yeah.
Right.
What you're suggesting is that 15% represented here does not count against
Correct.
the 1 acre.
Correct,
Yeah,
yeah.
I like that. It's so just kind of a general takeaway for me. I didn't come
Yeah.
in with any preconceived idea tonight, Michael, and I think you've given us some things to think about. For me personally, I would like to see this go through the process for consideration, but for the benefit of the community input and additional measurements from staff. But I'm not prepared at this point to suggest I have any feeling one way or the other as to how it's going to come out until we get more input.
I got a suggestion. Maybe since you kind of know where council is, at least right now, maybe come back and maybe not water it down, but give us some options maybe in order to present that to the community and to the public.
You mean like
begin-
some potential restrictions?
Yeah, just some potential options, because if I feel like what we have now is like, nope, we're just done. So maybe something that's more in the middle that we can start with the community, start getting some feedback from the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is the introduction. We want to hear this stuff. Yeah.
Can you go back over why 5 acres versus somebody that has 3 acres and wants to cut out, an acre for their child?
Yeah, it really just came down to Bob and I sitting down and we said, we looked at, different aerials and we just felt 5 acres was the appropriate size. And you'd likely get 4 acres and 1 acre flag that wouldn't create a development pattern. It was just our personal opinion that it wouldn't create flag lots clustering with other flag lots, and it would create enough space along the roll view shed.
I have a real problem with people that have held on to land for a while with the idea that at some point they could give it to family members, and we're taking that away. And something doesn't seem right about that.
What's called property rights.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem.
But we might not be. I mean, there might be workable things.
I
to
think
do.
there's a couple workable things for,
But it is
sure.
weird to give, to be able to give up an acre when other people don't give up an acre. I mean, it's just,
Yeah. Well, in staff's defense tonight, what came out of the work plan, it came out of the comp plan, was specific direction to take a hard look at this because of the idea of preserving the look and feel of rural Milton. And if you think about the look and feel of rural Milton, that does not necessarily mean stacking up flag lot driveways one after
Right.
another. So their intention is the best here to ensure that you're delivering against that charge that we gave you guys. So I applaud that effort. And
we all love staff, Paul.
yes.
We're all
We all
good.
do, but we're spanking them a little bit tonight for
No, we're
bringing
not.
back to us
Aren't-
what they were charged to give us.
Are
And,
most flag lots multiple driveways, or do they mostly do a shared driveway?
Majority are shared driveway.
So the look isn't 3 driveways stacked up. It's just when you look at a plat, you see 3 driveways.
Right.
But realistically, you still just see 1.
Right, but in keeping with that theme, we are also looking at large lot incentives, which is in contrast to this. This is kind of going back the other way, where you're not disincentivizing, not to be a wrong choice of words, but it makes my point, is this is looking for an accommodation to more development than less, where we're trying to give the developers incentives to do larger lot development. So you got to compare and contrast that in the mix of all this stuff too.
But
I have a real
to
problem with
Jan's point, us trying to engineering how somebody can change the trajectory of their property is not necessarily fair.
Yeah, no, I get that completely.
I mean, some people don't have an IR. They have a
A land,
land.
it's a land.
It's a land. That's their IRA.
right,
Yep.
and
You
if,
know,
and
I mean,
if
that's.
land is 200 grand an acre in some
nice
places,
piece.
you know, it's not really, I mean, there might be people who come along, well, there will be people who come along with 600,000 for a 3 acre, but they're probably more likely to be more buyers at 200 each.
Mhm.
The only problem is, I mean, I do think it's weird to be able to shave off an acre for a driveway. I mean,
Yeah,
that-
I agree with that.
We're getting a little funky in there. So that's the problem, right, Michael? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think
Thank
after
you.
this goes through the community and we get enough feedback, I think we'll come to a right solution for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I heard your feedback and I'll definitely get back, once you hear more from the community and I'll take your comments into consideration for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Bob. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Do we have any public comment on this?
We do not, sir.
So with that said, I think that will conclude our work session.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is a record.
That is a record.